Shalom Aleichem and welcome everyone as we are preparing for the holy holiday of Pesach that is coming to us. I would like to spend the next few moments, I know we're all preparing and scrubbing and cleaning and shopping and doing everything we have to, but I'd like to spend a few moments looking at the Haggadah, the lessons it teaches us and how we can take it and put it into our lives. The Haggadah is famously known for the four sons. Echad Chacham, ve'echad Rasha, ve'echad Tom, ve'echad Sheni Deilusho. We have the wise, the wicked, the simple, and the one that doesn't even know how to ask. And it says, Chacham, mahu oimer. Rasha, mahu oimer. What does the Chacham say? What does the Rasha say? Some explain as follows. Chacham, mahu oimer. A wise person, how do you know he's wise? What he says. A Rasha? Who's a Rasha? Mahu oimer. You can tell by how he speaks, by what he comes out of his mouth. It was in the days of Shlomo HaMelech, in King Solomon's time, lived a rich man, and he had three sons, the older, the middle, and the youngest. And he called them in sometime before his death, and he said to them, listen, I'm leaving you guys a treasure box full with treasure, jewelry, gold, silver, money, coins, whatever it is. And he says, I'm going to leave it here for you. It's locked. And the system you should have is that every 6 months, another son should take it, one of you should take it and keep it in your house. And this way you all watch over it, you're all the guards over it. And you're never to open it unless you meet the two conditions. Condition number one, it's opened in front of all of you. And condition number two, it has to be a situation, an emergency situation, a pekuach nefesh, and that's why you're opening it. And so it was, the father passed away. The first son took it, he had it for 6 months. The second son took it, he also had it for 6 months. And then the third son took it. Now the third son was a Rasha. Wasn't such a great guy. And when he went in his house, he did something that he shouldn't have done. He opened it, he cracked it open. He took out all the money. He went and he took some cheap stuff and put it inside there. And then hired a locksmith to come and fix the lock to make it look like it was never opened. And closed it. And when his 6 months are over, he gave it over to the older brother. And then, after a few weeks ever being at his older brother's house, he came and he started to use his money. He started to spend it. And since it was stolen money, there was no bracha on it. And he started to spend in all these places that he shouldn't have gone and shouldn't have spent on. And he did it. And his money got out. He had nothing left. And so now he runs to his brothers and he says, open it. We need to open it. I'm in a very bad financial situation. I need it. This is what my father left it for. This is what he left it for. I need it. And the older brothers weren't so interested in opening it yet. They said, you know what, we'll help you out. We'll give you a loan. What do you need? Tell us what you need. We'll help you out. And he said, no, I want to open it. And he started to scream, we need to. You know, there's a Turkish saying that if someone breaks into someone's house, if the owner of the house doesn't start to scream, then let the thief scream. Because whoever screams first, people listen to. And so this Rasha, this third son, he's screaming for them to open it. Finally they agreed. And all three brothers got together. They said, we fulfilled the condition of all three of us being here. And he says it's pekuach nefesh, so we'll open it. They open it, and lo and behold, inside, there's no gold or silver or treasure, nothing. The guy already took it all out. And now the Rasha, the third son who took everything out, starts to scream. He says, oh, you guys, it was in your house and you took it out. There's nothing left. What am I going to do? Oh, I'm in such a bad situation. I'm going to sue you. And they went to the Beit Din. And the Beit Din said, this is a really hard case. We don't know what to say. And they said, go to Shlomo HaMelech. And so the brothers agreed, and they all went to Shlomo HaMelech. They got their Shlomo HaMelech, and they have an audience with Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech, here's the story, here's the case. He figures out immediately that it was the youngest son who did it, who stole it. And he says, listen, I can't answer you guys right now. It's just a hard case. Stay over in Yerushalayim. Tomorrow morning, during breakfast, we'll talk over during the meal, during the Seudah. So it was, the brothers agreed. They stayed overnight. In the morning, they came, Shlomo HaMelech, Seudah, the table, thousands of korbanot, thousands of people. And they come and they sit. Shlomo HaMelech says, listen, you guys, you're here. Maybe you can help me. There's a case that came from Africa. It's a very perplexing case. I need some help with it. He says there was once a young girl, and she went out to shepherd her father's sheep, and she saw a well of water, and she wanted to drink. She started to drink, and she fell inside. And she was trying her best and with all her strength to try to get out of the pit, try to get out of the well, and she was going to be drowned and killed, until a young boy, hearing her scream, ran, and he was able to save her. As he pulled her out of the pit that was filled with water, she says to him, thank you for saving me. I promise that I will marry you. And he says the same thing. I saved you. There's a connection, and I promise to marry you. And they both went their merry way. And this girl, she goes back home. She grows up, and she's turning in the age of shidduchim. And her family is a rich family. And all these people start to come, these young men. And she says, I don't want to go out with any of them. You have to. She says, I don't want to go out with any of them. Her father says, what happened? She says, I promised this guy. Father says, listen, he's an ani. We know the family that he comes from. I know which city he is. It's not the guy for you. And she starts dating other people. And she finally meets a young man who's really nice. And she says to this young man, listen, I really like you. And you like me. But I can't get married to you. Not until I go back and see the first boy who I promised to get married to and ask him for permission. This young gentleman said, listen, I agree to you. You made a promise. We have to see to it. Let's go check it out. Maybe he's going to forgive it. Maybe he's going to let us. And so together, this young man and young woman traveled to another city to go see this boy who saved her, and she promised to marry him. They arrive at his house, and he lives in a small little shack, and he was so happy to see her. And she tells him, I know I promised you, but here is a young man who I really want to get married to. Can you find it in your heart to let me marry him? And he says, with a full heart, whatever makes you happy, it's all for you. My promise, your promise, you don't have to keep it. And they annul their promises. And now this young couple, so happy, they come out together. They're going back to their city, and it's getting late. And they stop at an inn, and they said they're going to spend the night there, and then in the morning, they'll head back out. And in this inn, there was what they call an Ish Kadosh. He called himself a holy man, but he was a charlatan. Like today, you have people who call themselves Baba, and people who call themselves rabbis, and people who call themselves all sorts of things. But what they are people who are charlatans trying to take people's monies. And this guy was a Rasha Merusha, terrible Rasha. And he saw this young couple, and he decided that he wanted that girl to be his wife. He sees that they are of the wealthier people, and so he decides to walk over to them, and he starts to give them a mazel tov. He says, oh, you're probably engaged, and he gives them drinks and drinks, and he plies them with wine, until eventually they both start to pass out. He helps them get up to their room, and when he gets them inside, he ties them up with ropes. He decides that he's going to tell the girl that he wants to marry her, and she has to marry him. And with the boy, he's going to decide what to do. He ties him up, ties her up, And after a little while, they wake up, and he tells the girl, I'm going to marry you, and I'm stealing everything from this boy, and I don't know what I'm going to do with him yet. And she says, I don't understand you. Who are you to us? Why are you doing this to us? Do you know, before we came to this inn, we were at this man's house who I promised to marry him. He promised to marry me, and he forgave it. You have no connection to us, and now you want me to marry you? What are you talking about? And she continued on this way, using logic to try to explain to this Rasha what he was doing was completely wrong. And this Rasha was so close to killing this young man, so close to violating this young woman. But in the last minute, he listened to her, and he let them go. And the story got out. In all of Africa, everyone talked about it. And the question was, who in this story was the most best of all? Who was the most righteous of all? Some said it was the young man who was engaged to this woman, who he went with her, didn't need to, and he went with her, and he went to the other city, and he went to ask. He was the best of them all. While others said, no, the first young man who promised to marry, and she promised to marry him, he was an ani, and he gave it up with all. And not only did he give it up, he said, I'd let you get married. And he gave them gifts and everything. He is the most tzaddik of all. And there was a third group of people who said, no. You know who's the most righteous of all? The Rasha, the last man, the Ish Kadosh. Why? Because he had the ability to do what he wanted to her. And he had the ability to kill this man and take all their money. And yet he didn't. He's the most tzaddik of all. So now Shlomo Melech turns to these three boys, to these three young men, and he tells them, which one do you think was the most righteous? So the oldest son says, I think the man that was engaged to her, he's the most righteous. He went with her. He didn't have to. And the second son says, the most righteous, of course, was the first boy. He gave up, could have been rightfully his. He gave them gifts. He was such a nice guy. He didn't have to do any of that. And the youngest son said, you know who was the best? It was that guy who could have killed him and could have done what he wanted to her. And yet, he listened to her and didn't do anything. He is the best of all. When Shlomo HaMelech heard this, he said, you are the one who broke the box and stole everything. And the youngest boy said, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's not true. You have no proof to this. And Shlomo HaMelech said, Ish lefi mahalalo. Man according to what he praises. No one would say that this man was the best of them all. The fact that you are saying that he's the best of them all, it's because that's who you are. That's what you praise. That's what you like. And I understand that you're the one who stole it. So Rabotai, the question to us is, what are we praising? What are we saying? Are we saying Chacham? Are we saying Rasha? What are we letting people know by what we are talking? We come to the Tam, to our second lesson, and it says Tam Mahu Oimer. What does a simple son say? Simple son says, Mazois, what's this? Mazot, what's this? That's the way we usually understood it. Mazoit is very simple, he doesn't know how to ask. This year, as I was preparing for Pesach, while cleaning, I was listening to a shir by Rav Nochem Cooper, Zechat Tzadik L'Bracha, and he brought down from the Minchat Elazar a different understanding of Tam Ma'oimer. He says, Tam Ma'oimer, what's the simple son say? He says, Ma'zot. You know what Ma'zot means? What's this? To put it in a very present day term, the simple son is not really a simple son, but he's a chilled dude. He's chilled. Anything that happens, nothing gets his emotions highs. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, okay. You know, it's just a very mazot. What's this? So Hashem made miracles. Mazot. What's this? It's no biggie. No biggie. And this is a problem. For someone to say, Ma Zois, and therefore we have to answer him, with the strong hand Hashem took them out. You have to you try to explain to him the excitement. What happened there? With the strong hand. The story told over with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov had a student, Reb David. And Reb David was going on a trip. And the Baal Shem Tov called him in and said to him, you have to be, when you're going on your trip, you have to be very careful with what you say. Be very careful. And he said, Baal Shem Tov, I'm going on a boat, I'm going on a ship, I'm going for a little business, and I'm coming back. And I'm not a person who speaks bad. Baal Shem Tov said, just be careful with what you say. Now, David really was very perplexed because he was a guy that always spoke nicely, and something didn't go right. He always said, Hashem is our Father, He'll help us. That was his thing. He never got angry, he never got upset. Hashem is our Father, He'll help us. No, not knowing what the Baal Shem Tov wanted from him, he went on his journey. He got on a boat and he went traveling, and the ship stopped at an island, and the ship said, we're going to restart in about 5-6 hours. You have time for an excursion, you can go out. And this man decided he's going to go out, and he was going to look around. And lo and behold, as these stories go, he missed the boat, and now he's stuck on the island. He's stuck on the island. He's walking around, hopefully he finds somebody. And he sees a cabin with a light. He goes, and he sees a Jewish man inside there. Svarim, big beard, and Ish Kadosh, a real holy man. And he knocks on the door. The man opens it. Says, come in, come in. He says, you're Jewish? He says, yes. He says, come, I'll give you to eat, I'll give you to drink. He says, where are you from? He says, I'm from Poland. And this man says, wow, I live here all alone. I'm Jewish. And I don't know what's going on in in Europe and other places in the Jewish world. Tell me, how is it? How is it there? Are the Jews living in peace? Are they able to do mitzvot? Are they able to learn Torah? Or is there so much persecution and problems and pogroms and whatnot? It makes it life difficult for them. Now, Reb David, in his classical manner, says, no, Hashem is our Father. Hashem will help us. The man said, okay, very good. He gave him some eat. He says, listen, there's another boat coming in a few hours. I'll walk you back to where the boats dock. He walks him back and bids him farewell. So this man continues his trip. And he goes to his business. He comes back from his business, gets back to his hometown, and he stops by the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov said, oh, David, I told you to be careful. You weren't careful. He says, I don't know what you're talking about. I was careful the whole time. I'm always careful. The Baal Shem Tov said to him, tell me what happened. He says, what happened? I went on a boat. I got this. So what significant happened? He said, interesting. I got stuck on this island. I found the man in a cabin. He asked me a couple of questions, how the Jews were here, and I said, no, Hashem is our Father, Hashem will help us. And the Baal Shem Tov said, Reb David, do you know who that man was? That was Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was in Shemayim, and Avraham Avinu was telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Jews can't live in Galut anymore. It's too much for them. They can't serve you properly. Bring Mashiach. They're being persecuted. They need help. Hashem wanted to listen to Avraham Avinu. But the Sultan came and said, nah, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. So Hashem sent Avraham Avinu down to earth to find a righteous Jew who would tell him the truth. And he came to you when he asked you. And you said, Hashem's our Father, Hashem will help us. You were supposed to say there's problems. There's issues. Have an emotion. Feel for someone else. People have so much tzarot, so much pain, so much suffering. And Mashiach would have came. When it comes to our own suffering, we can say Hashem will help. When it comes to Klal Yisrael's suffering, we can't do that. You have to feel the emotion. You have to daven. You have to cry. You have to break. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the Chassadik Baruch was once asked. He always had a statement. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter had a statement that all character traits all can be used in the service of Hashem. So someone asked him, how can apikarsis, not believing in Hashem, be used to serve Hashem? And Yisrael Salanta said, you know what it is? When someone's in pain, when someone's having a trouble, that's the time not to just tell him, oh, Hashem will help you, Hashem will take care of it, but to get in there and help him yourself. That's when you use apikarsis. To go and get in there yourself and do it. And so that emotion is so important, to be able to feel for someone else. Let's move on to our third lesson from the Haggadah. The Haggadah, we learned the story about Yaakov Avinu, and how he ended up in Mitzrayim. And it says, B'shiv'im nefesh yadu avotecha Mitzrayim. But 70 souls. But nefesh is used, nefesh is one soul. And it says shiv'im nefesh, 71 souls. 70 souls. Why doesn't it use the word nafashot to express the plural of souls? There's an Indian, there's a thing that Jews all act as one. There was a Kaiser in Austria, and the Kaiser of Austria came to Rav Shimshon Wertheimer, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, a Rav in Austria, and said to him, listen, you guys keep saying you're the chosen nation. The ministers in the church here are very upset, and they say that it's not true. How can you claim, how do you have any proof that you're the chosen nation? And so Shimshon Wertheimer says to him, I have proof. I can prove it to you, and I'll prove it to you today. This is very good. He invites all the dignitaries, all the ministers, and Rav Shimshon says, okay. He says, you're going to make a seudah, you're going to make a banquet. You're going to put out beautiful food, and you're going to bring in 40 strangers, 40 random people. Now, don't put any silverware on the table. And have fashioned long forks, very long forks. And when they ask for silverware, that's what you take out. And so that's what they did. They fashioned the forks. They invited 40 strangers into the room. And they put all sorts of delicacies on the table. And the goyim were there, and they said, no, where's the silverware? Silverware, sure. And they brought out the long forks. And they're all looking at this long fork, what to do with it, this way, that way. They try to eat it. You can't put it in your mouth. You can't hold it and put it. And so after about an hour or two, no one able to eat anything, they all left. And now they repeated it again. This time they put out food, and they called in 40 Jews to come in from different yeshivot, different bet kinesiot, and they brought them in randomly, sat them down. And the Jews looked around, they saw the food. They said, silverware? And they brought out long forks. All the Jews looked at the forks, and it took them about 10 seconds, and each one picked up the fork and started to feed the other. They stretched their fork over the table, and they all fed each other. After that, there was no more questions of why we're the chosen nation. We're Shivim Nefesh. We're all one another. Look today how busy Pesach is, how expensive Pesach is, and how many organizations are out there. How many organizations are helping one another? How many people are helping one another? You don't have this anywhere else. We're all in it together. We all understand that we're all one soul. We're all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're all one nation. And this is something important to remember. To love one another, to help one another. We're all one. If we're all one, then there's no competition. There's no anything else. This is what the Haggadah is telling us. That we went down to Mitzrayim for Shivim Nefesh. We know that in life, sometimes we get a hergish, we get a feeling that we want to change, and something miraculous happens. We're not able to keep to it, not able to hold on to it. It's interesting to note that when the Jews left Mitzrayim, as it says in the Haggadah, when they have to see, what does it say? They saw the great hand which Hashem had laid upon the Egyptians. The Midrash explains that at the Yam Suf, the maidservants, even the maidservants, saw more than Yecheskel, the Navi Yecheskel ben Buzi would ever see. As it says, they were able to point and say, this is Hashem. But Rav Shlomo Shadron said, it's interesting that even though the Navi Yecheskel didn't get to see what they saw, yet the Navi Yecheskel stayed the Navi, whereas the maidservant stayed the maidservant. She saw such miraculous events. She saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but yet she stayed a maidservant. Harav Meir Chadash, Tzaddik Bracha, he explained it as follows. He said when he was a young man in Russia, just before World War I, Russian soldiers caught him without his required papers. And the Goyim at that time were doing anything they want to Jews. They considered Jews parasites. And the desire for Jewish blood was unleashed. The soldiers quickly determined that this young man, Rav Meir Chadash, was guilty of treason and deserved to be executed immediately. They prepared a firing squad to execute him. And he began reciting Vidya and Kriyat Shema. And he was shaking so much that the general, one of the soldiers who were in charge started to scream and yell at him to stop moving as they want to shoot him. And he's moving too much. He's overcome with fear. Rav Chadash started to shake even more. This time the soldiers screamed so hard, so long, so loud that their general, who was taking his nap, woke up. Quickly seeing what was going on, he screamed at his soldiers, and they quickly dispersed. And Rav Meir Chadash was saved. And he would say, you would think, that after such an incredible experience, life would not be the same. But I tell you, he says, after a little while, I began to live a normal life again. The feeling of being saved miraculously started to go away. I was losing sight of the amazing miracle that saved me from certain death. He said, at that point, I made up my mind that I have to hold on to the past and transform it to the future. He said, I have to solidify every strength in my belief in Hashem, that He desires for me to remain alive, and nothing can come in its way. And he says, in order for me to have this feeling, I have to review it every single day. And so, Rabbotai, on Pesach night, we're not just reading the Haggadah, but we're reliving the miracle. And part of reliving the miracle means to take the miracle with us. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us all a Chag Kosher V'Sameach. May we be able to take these lessons to make sure that our mouths speak correctly, because that's who we are. Get excited, have feelings when things are going on, especially when going on with others. And remember, we're the chosen nation because we're there for one another. And remember that everything that we do, all the miracles we talk about, all the miracles we see, we must take it continuously, think about it, and take it with us for the rest of our lives. Wishing one and all a happy and kosher Pesach. Till next time.